Entrepreneur's Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, so the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneur's Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. By now you know who I am, but I'm Seth, I'm your host. Today I have a good buddy of mine, Geoffrey Kent. We met on Alignable. So this just goes to show that Alignable is actually a place to hang out, because I met a great guy named Geoffrey Kent. He is the epitome of an entrepreneur. And he's done 20 plus entrepreneurial ventures over the last 5 decades, and he's still in diapers now. 20 entrepreneurial ventures. He has a MBA in Entrepreneurial Management from Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. He's been executive at Xerox, AT&T. He's worked with Dr. J at his holding company, which is kind of cool. Claim to fame. You met Dr. J, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hear he's a real good guy. He's like the epitome of Philly. He's more Philly than Billy Penn, in my opinion. And you have taught entrepreneurship at Lincoln University, which is down in Chesco, right? Chester County?
Yeah. There's actually a town called Lincoln University.
They weren't being very creative.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you also have done some judging of business plans at a competition at Drexel University. Your gig now is you're the CEO of Think Big with Geoffrey Kent. The links will be in the show notes, so don't worry about that. He's got a bunch of stuff with that. He's essentially, and you also run Entrepreneurs University on Alignable, which I thought, that's how I first discovered you. I mean, this guy has a university on Alignable, talking about how to be an entrepreneur, how to do it right, how to learn from his mistakes, or at least not make as big a mistake. Because no one learns from, let's be honest, no one actually learns from each other's mistakes. We all have to make our own mistakes, but it's how we can do it more gracefully. The next one. So, Jeff, welcome, buddy. How you been?
I've been well. I'm incredibly busy, and which is a good thing. It's better than the alternative. So,
exactly. Exactly. So, how does get started? Have you always been an entrepreneur, or did you do the corporate grind first and decide I'm sick of this, I'm going to do my entrepreneur thing? Because 20 ventures. I mean, and we forgot to mention your last venture, Cognis IT. It was from a launch from 6 years ago, launch to successful exit in 6 years. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So you've been around the block a few times.
2007. So for the first half of my career, I was, my parents are in their 90s. They're depression era babies.
We were just discussing this before the show that Geoffrey's parents and family lives in their hundreds, so he's got a good run ahead of him.
Yeah.
He can do a few more ventures.
Yeah, people who were children in the late 20s, early 30s, because of the economic conditions at the time, they weren't going to take, they weren't being raised to take risks with their careers, weren't raising their children.
They were
to take
the
risks
gold
with their
watch
careers.
generation, where you worked for 65 years, you got your gold watch. And then you went to the golf course.
Yeah. So I jokingly tell people every night going to bed, my mother would whisper, I'm the youngest of 4, whisper into my brother, and my sister's ears, you're going to college to become a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah. None of us became doctors or lawyers, but we all went to college. We've all done well professionally. I started the traditional corporate career. My first job out of college was with Xerox. Went to AT&T, decided 11 years into my career to go back to school and get an MBA. So I came to Philadelphia to go to Wharton to do that. Then, Dr. J and from Dr. J, I went to Deloitte Consulting in Philadelphia.
That's a big one. Deloitte's
by the time I reached, while I was in corporate America full-time, I was dabbling in entrepreneurship part-time.
Yeah, your side hustle. You got to have a side hustle.
Yeah. Venture after venture, and then finally at the age of I was in my late 40s.
We're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show. Yeah.
I'm at Deloitte, And I was just saying to myself, I hate corporate America, and,
It got
and
to you
what I
eventually,
love
yeah.
is when I do this entrepreneurial stuff. And,
Hmm.
and so, I sat down, had a discussion with my wife, and she kind of corroborated, and she's like, yeah, when you do something entrepreneurial, your eyes light up,
Yeah.
and I
You
know you're
twinkle. Yeah.
miserable, doing what you're doing now. So I literally just decided I'm leaving corporate America. I'm going to do the entrepreneurial thing full time. This was in 1999, and basically everything I've done since then is just been, paved with gold. So,
That's awesome, man.
knock on wood, I've been very lucky.
Very lucky. I mean, look, 6 years went from starting a company and then exiting in 6 years, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
And now you're doing mostly coaching, right? You're coaching entrepreneurs and helping people kind of figure out the
yeah,
landscape.
yeah, and a lot of it's really based on that last venture. So that Cognis was a private cloud computing business that we launched in Philadelphia. I had two co-founders. We launched it in 2007.
Wow.
Both of my co-founders were techies. It was
Yeah.
their idea.
You were the
They
business
were
brains behind it.
considerably young.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were considerably younger than me. So they came to me initially to help them write their business plan. And then once we finished writing the business plan, they're like,
We want
hey,
to keep you.
Philadelphia is not Silicon Valley. It's not a tech-centric city. We're really young. We don't have experience doing anything entrepreneurial. You do. We actually think that if there's someone with gray hair running the company, they
That's
might,
good.
people might take us a little more seriously. So they asked me to join, and I bought 51% of the company. And
Yeah.
I came in with and this is probably my Wharton training.
Yeah.
I basically told them, I'm like, I'm not, technology in and of itself doesn't excite me. And so I'm like, if I'm going to do this, we have to try to create the next $1 billion business in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And so they both looked at me and they're like, we wouldn't know where to start to do that.
That's
But if
all
you
you,
think you can do
Jeffrey. It's
it,
all you.
we'll ride your coattails. So,
Yeah.
that was the goal. We obviously we didn't hit that metric, but we
Billion.
did incredibly well. And
Yeah.
6 years later, we sold the business, and I was 11 years ago, and I've spent the last 11 years mentoring other entrepreneurs,
And having
because what I
fun. Yeah.
found out through that experience was that, I actually, again, because I had studied entrepreneurship in business school.
Yeah.
I had taken 5 courses from 5 different professors. So I actually went back to Penn before we launched and sat down with my 5 professors. I asked them one question. It was, if you were to give me one piece of advice that if I implemented it would maximize the probability I'd succeed in this venture, what would that be? And I had 5 incredible conversations. Every professor gave me a litany of books they wanted me to read about, scaling business growth.
Hmm.
I read all the books. By the time I finished the last book, I'm like, it's like I read the same book over and over and over again. Successful entrepreneurs attribute the same things to their
Yeah.
entrepreneurial success.
I've noticed that
So
too.
I kind of
I've
realized
noticed
that,
that. Yeah.
that there is a success blueprint, right, for entrepreneurship. So I kind of jotted down all these repetitive themes I was hearing and
Yeah.
reading about. And when we launched, I said, you know what? And it was almost as a lark for me. It was, I'm going to infuse all this stuff in the business just to see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
So we did that. Everything worked. So
wow.
then
That's
what that
awesome.
told me was, one, there is a blueprint for entrepreneurial success.
Yeah.
It's actually readily available.
Yeah.
It's easy to get your hands on.
It's in a bunch of
But
books.
it's incredibly difficult to implement, right?
Yeah.
So that's where a coach comes in. Someone needs to kind of walk you through, because where you can succeed with the blueprint is when you take that blueprint, you customize it to your individual strengths, weaknesses, likes, and dislikes, right?
Love it. Yeah.
So you've got to be doing the things that you like to do and are good at doing, and you've got to outsource everything else. But you've got to take the time to discover what are those things I'm incredibly passionate about, so that I can build this business around that.
That's awesome. And you found that
so
in your
that's, I
co-founders.
think, where
They
you need
did what
help.
they were good at. You did what you're good at. You're like, I don't want to do the tech.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
do the business. You do the
Yeah.
tech. You do the geeky stuff.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that you've got gray hair at the top, kind of like
Yeah,
you're the
yeah.
adult in the room. You're the adult.
Well,
in
it
the
kind of
room.
worked out really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out really well in that what I realized, my lack of technical expertise
Probably helps.
came in incredibly valuable, because most people aren't tech savvy.
Yeah.
right? Particularly, at the C level.
Yeah.
And so these are the people that I'm talking to
So
to
you
try
could
to,
translate it.
get
Yeah.
business. Exactly. I would sit in meetings with my co-founders and they start
What?
explaining cloud computing to a CEO. And I would just sit back and look at, the person's eyes. And when the eyes
Yeah.
started to glaze over, I would stop one of my co-founders. I would tell the other person, I'm like, do you want me to explain what they just said? And they're
Yeah.
like, because no
They're
one
like,
wants to feel
yeah,
stupid.
it's
So they're like, oh,
impressive,
yeah,
but
yeah, please. Could you do that? Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So you've done the corporate grind. You've done the entrepreneurial journey past 2 decades. What's the best thing about
Yep.
being an entrepreneur?
For me, it's giving me one, it's having control of my own fate, one, but two, it's also, and I tell entrepreneurs this all the time. This is why it's incredibly important to find out what you're passionate about and then build a business around it.
Yeah.
Because I tell people when you do what you love what you do, right? So for me, it's and the easiest way to explain this is I will get texts at say 2 a.m.
Oy.
and respond to someone at 2:05, and then they're like, the person is like, why aren't you asleep? And I'm like, I was asleep,
You woke
but
me up.
I sleep lightly and
You
I keep
woke
my
me
phone
up.
on and, when it pinged, I woke up, I responded to I saw your text, responded to it and went back to sleep.
Yeah.
I make
Sure
sure I get
yourself.
8 hours of sleep every night, but,
Yeah.
then they're like, why would you do this? I said, why would you do work, while you're sleeping? I
Yeah.
said, because to me, it's not work. I do what I love. I enjoy entrepreneurship. So for me, this comes as naturally to me as eating, breathing, sleeping, right? So it's just
Yeah.
what I do.
It's your
You know,
thing.
so
Yeah.
whenever someone needs me, I help.
I love it. I love it. So what keeps you up at night besides these text messages at 2 o'clock in the morning? What keeps you up? What's the scary thing about being an entrepreneur? Well,
There's
not much
really,
anymore.
for me. There's nothing at this stage. Nothing yet. My youngest is
You've
she's about
seen
to
it. You've seen it
graduate with a
all.
degree in architecture from Temple. So
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. So
Oh, that's
I
exciting.
tell my daughter. I have two daughters. So I tell my daughters when the youngest is done, I'm done. I'm probably not going to really retire, but so for me, I'm at a stage in my career where, there aren't many challenges or obstacles that I haven't already seen multiple times in my career.
Yeah.
So
So probably be a
there's
coach for the rest
absolutely
of it.
nothing
Yeah.
that scares me. Yeah.
Probably just be a coach.
And
from now
and
on.
you know
Yeah.
I'm in a stage where I don't need to do this. I
Yeah.
do it because I love doing it and I want to help other people. I actually
Mm-hmm.
believe that no one needs to fail. That everyone can succeed. It's
Yeah.
it's a
But if
matter
you do
of
fail, you gotta fail
getting the proper
fast.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if you
yeah, yeah.
fail in the right
I mean,
direction,
well,
yeah.
failure is part of the entrepreneurial process. It's like hearing no. It's no gets you closer to yes. Failure gets
Absolutely.
you closer to success. It's
Yeah.
part of the process. So, you shouldn't be afraid of failure. You should embrace it because you learn through failure,
It's called
right? So
pivoting.
every time you
Yeah.
fail, you've added something else onto your armor.
Yeah.
And you're better off in the next go
Love it,
around.
my friend. Love it. So, what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time? You can go as woo as you want to go. You can go as physical as you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it's probably my cell phone,
Yeah.
but outside of that, one thing that I love to see in entrepreneurs is humility.
Yeah.
Because there is an arrogance that is needed to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? Because you're constantly hearing no, you're constantly facing rejection, and in order to develop the thick skin to be able to overcome that, you kind of have to, get to a place where you think very highly of yourself. However, within that, you still have to be humble enough because none of us the goal should be to try to know everything and learn everything, but
Yeah.
you never will, right?
You never will.
And so you have to be humble enough to one seek out advice and assistance and mentorship, and you have to be humble enough to be quiet enough to listen and absorb what you hear so that you can implement it properly, right?
You have 2 ears, one
So,
mouth. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
2 ears, one mouth. Use them proportionally, which I'm still learning how to
Yeah.
do. I'm
Right,
still learning.
right.
I'm 42 and
Yeah,
still
yeah.
learning it.
Well,
So
well,
yeah.
yeah. I see this question a lot. I get asked it occasionally of, hey, if you could turn back the hands of time, what would you change? And I tell people I wouldn't change anything.
No,
I've
you're
had
living
an
your best
incredible
life.
life. I said, but what I would do is I would change my ability to understand what I was being taught when I was being taught it. Right.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Because you could accomplish so much more when you're younger if you actually understand the things that, we all are being given gifts. But when you're young, you just,
Yeah,
you
it's different.
tend
It's
not to
different,
be
and
able
it's also a
to,
different kind of thinking
yeah,
too, isn't it? Isn't it? I
yeah,
think
yeah,
what's his face? Author Arthur somebody or other. He teaches at NYU. I think he wrote a whole book on this. Arthur Brooks,
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
how it's
okay,
crystallized intelligence, which we're both in now, versus the
yeah,
other
yeah,
kind of intelligence where it's more plasticity. And it's like,
right,
it's not, you're
right,
not losing your noggin. It's just different ways of learning. And I really liked
yeah,
it. The
yeah,
book was kind of depressing because I'm like, wow,
yeah,
I should have
yeah,
done more before, but whatever. I'm in my crystallized
yeah, yeah,
age.
yeah.
Take what you're given.
We all should have, but
Shoulda, woulda,
life is
coulda.
what it is, and yeah, yeah, yeah. So you just have to live your life as it's given to you, and
Absolutely.
with no regrets.
Exactly. So people can find you at Think Big with Geoffrey Kent. Geoffrey spelled
FFREY.
Geoffrey,
Yeah,
the fancy
right.
schmancy way. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank or chastise my parents for that. I
Yeah,
have
I
had
like.
no control over
It
that.
looks. I like the Geoffrey better than the.
Yeah, it is
Wasn't
unique.
Jeffrey
So
the Toys R Us mascot spelled Jeffrey this way too?
yes,
He was.
absolutely.
So you're in
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
You're in
yeah,
great company.
yeah,
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 Jeffrey the
yeah, yeah.
giraffe.
No,
Exactly.
no, it's the old English spelling.
Oh,
So
fancy
it's
schmancy.
it's I found it's unique, and so it's
But you can actually be found in
it
Google a
works.
lot easier, I'm sure too. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are a couple other Jeffrey Kents, but
there's only one you,
not
buddy.
many.
There's only one
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
buddy.
yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun, and we'll see everyone next time. That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneur's Enigma, please review us in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps other podcast listeners find our show. If you're looking for other podcasts in the marketing space, look no further than the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net.